Okay, now we're recording. So this is what a box and whisker plot looks like, and there's 5 numbers that we care about within the box and whisker plot. The first one is the minimum number of the set of data. So the minimum is the number farthest to the left. In this case, the minimum is 16. So that tells me that the smallest number in my data set is 16. The next number that we care about is the maximum, which in this case is 28. The next number we care about is the median. And I don't know if you guys remember mean, median, mode, range, all those numbers that we've talked or that you might have heard talked about in previous math classes when you're talking about statistics and data. Median is the exact middle number. So the median in this case is 22. And then we have the things called quartiles. We have the lower quartile and we have the upper quartile. Okay, so the lower quartile is this number here, the bottom end of the box. And that number is 18. The upper quartile is the top end of the box. Sometimes we'll abbreviate them as LQ and UQ in case we don't want to write lower quartile and upper quartile a whole bunch. And in this case, the upper quartile is 26. So these are the 5 main numbers that we care about in a box and whisker plot. Those are the numbers that if you have those numbers, you can make a box and whisker plot. And if you don't have those numbers, then you can't make a box and whisker plot. So these are the 5 main numbers, and we call these numbers the 5-number summary. And you need all 5 to make the box and whisker plot. Okay, so if you have those 5 numbers, you're good to go, ready to roll, make a box and whisker plot. Okay, so that's how we make one. And then there's some different information that we can get from a box and whisker plot if we are given one. So that's also some stuff that we want to go over. So we can get those 5 numbers out of it. We can figure out what the minimum and the maximum and the median and the quartiles are. But we can also tell us something about the spread of the data. How far apart are your numbers? Is a lot of your data clustered around the middle? Do you have one number that's way higher than the others? Stuff like that. So that's where we bring in things like the range and the interquartile range. So again, if you have a large range, then your data is really spread apart. If you have a large interquartile range, that even tells you even more that your data is really spread apart. But if you have a small interquartile range or a small range, then your data is really close together. So the range is the maximum minus the minimum. So in this case, our maximum was 28 and our minimum was 16. Then our range is 12. The interquartile range, likewise, is the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. And in this case, our upper quartile was 26. Our lower quartile was 18. So our interquartile range is 8. Okay, so those are some things that we can tell from a box and whisker plot, the range and the interquartile range. We can also tell how much of the data is above or below a certain value based on something important here. Each section, so like the whisker, this half of the box, the top half of the box, and the other whisker, they each contain 25% of your data. So 1/4 of my numbers are between 16 and 18, 25%. Another 25% of my numbers are between 18 and 22. Another 25% of my numbers are between 22 and 26. And the last 25% are between 26 and 28. So each section contains 25% or 1/4 of the data. So for example, with this one, I could ask you, what percent of the data is above 18? So then to figure that out, we'd go, okay, 18 is up here, that's the lower quartile. And there's 1, 2, 3 sections above 18. So if there's 3 sections and each section is worth 25%, that would be 75% of the data is above 18. Okay. Well, how about what fraction of the data is below 22? What fraction of the data is below 22? Well, we would go up to our graph and go, okay, here's 22. There's 1, 2 sections below it because there's the bottom half of the box and there's that whisker. So that would be 2 sections that are below 22. Yeah, 50%, Christy. And if we want that as a fraction, 50% is 1/2. Nice. Looks like we're catching on. I'll have you guys try one. What percent of the data is between 18 and 26? When you think you have it, type "got it" in the chat. Between 18 and 26. So I'll show you the graph in case you don't have it down. Between 18 and 26. Once you think you know, type "got it" in the chat. Pender, you're fine. Come here, bud. Hey. Pups, come on. One moment. Pupper's going crazy. Buddy, you gotta chill out. You're fine. Okay, go run around. Alrighty. Looks like most of us got it. For those of you who think you have it, what percent is between 18 and 26? Yup. What do we think? What percent is between 18 and 26? My dog tends to do that I think there's people gardening next door. And he heard the leaf blower. Okay, so between 18 and 26, there's the lower quartile and the median. So there's this half of the box, and then there's the top half of the box. So we have two sections. Yeah, what percent of the data between 18 and 26, just like we've been doing here. So how many sections? Well, we've got this section and this section between 18 and 26. So that's two sections, which is 50%. Yep. So we're just counting how many sections are there between whatever values they want. And then however many sections there are, multiply that by 25%. Oh, your dog is mute. Okay. So that's pretty much all the things we can be expected to read out of a box and whisker plot. We need to be able to figure out what is the minimum, the maximum, the median, and the upper and lower quartiles. And so if we have a picture like this all labeled, it's usually pretty easy to go, okay, kind of just matching up parts, right? Okay. And then finding the range and the inner quartile range. So being able to go maximum minus minimum, or upper quartile minus lower quartile. And then being able to lastly figure out what percentage of the data is located in each spot. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is then talk about how would we make a box and whisker plot if we wanted to with some data. So we're gonna try two examples. We'll try one with just some numbers that I will make up, and then we'll try one hopefully with some data that we'll collect right here. So here we go. Making a box and whisker plot. And this will only come up at the very end of our IXL section today, so you'll only have to make one or two. But or you'll have to identify it. You won't have to make it yourself. You have to just be able to look at some data and then decide which box plot goes with it. Okay, so here's our data values. 3, 4, 4, 6, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, 10, 8, 9. So there's our data. All right, Ashlyn. So looking at our data, the first step when you want to make a box and whisker plot is to put your numbers in order from least to greatest. So if you're the sort of person that likes to follow steps, this is great because making a box and whisker plot can definitely just follow steps to do it. So step 1, put numbers in order, least to greatest. And the way that I like to do that is kind of go through my list and cross them off as I go so that I don't forget any numbers. So first, it looks like the smallest number is 3, and there's 2 3s. The next smallest number is 4, and there's 2 4s. Then we have a 5. There's only 1 5. And then there's also a 6 and a 7. And then there's 2 8s. And then there's a 9. And then lastly, there are 2 10s. Okay, so we've done our first step. Put the numbers in order from least to greatest. Okay. Step 2. Find the median. Which is the middle number. And so the way that we find the median is crossing off the ends until we get down to the middle. So here we go for finding the median. I'm going to cross off one set of numbers on the end. Then I'm going to cross off 2 sets of numbers on the end. And then another set. And another one. And another one. Okay. So if you have an even amount of numbers like this, and you would cross off these 2 next, the middle number is the number that is halfway between these 2. So if I end up with 2 numbers in the middle, what's between 6 and 7? 6.5, yeah. So if I have 2 numbers in the middle, I pick whatever is in between them exactly. So 6.5 is my middle number here, because this is halfway down my data set here. I have half the numbers on one side and half the numbers on the other side. If you get down to just one number in the middle, like if you have an odd amount of numbers, then you would pick that number. But if you have an even amount of numbers, you pick the number between the 2 in the middle. So our median here is 6.5. Okay. The next thing we have to do, step 3, find the median of the top half. This is known as the upper quartile. And there, bud. He brought his squeaky cow into the room. All right. So we're going to find the median of the top half now. So, buddy, come on, man. Okay. So this is the top half of my numbers, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the whole set with just the top half. So now this is the bottom of the top half. Yes, the squeaking intensifies. And this is the top of the top half. So I'm going to cross off, and if you want to cross off the other direction, you can. Okay. So I'd cross off one set, cross off the next set, and then we end up with two numbers in the middle again. Yes. Puppy sound effects. So we end up with two numbers in the middle again, 8 and 9. And what's halfway between 8 and 9? Well, 8.5, right? So that would be the median of the top half. The upper quartile is 8.5. Then if you guessed, based on what we did with the top half, we're going to do the same thing with the bottom half. So we're going to find the median of the bottom half. This is also known as the lower quartile. Okay. So doing the same thing over here, crossing off one set of numbers, crossing off another set of numbers, and we end up with two numbers in the middle. Well, what's between 4 and 4? 4, right? If you end up with the two of the same number in the middle, then that's just your the number that you pick. So the median of the bottom half, in this case, the lower quartile, is 4. Okay, we're almost done. We've got 3 out of the 5 numbers that we need. We have the hardest ones to find, actually, the median, the upper and the lower quartiles. Now all we have to find is the maximum and the minimum. So the maximum is 10. The minimum is 3. So now we have the max, the min, the upper and lower quartiles, and the median. The last thing you have to do is plot the numbers on a number line. And draw your box plot. Okay, so remembering the numbers that we care about here are 3, 4, 6.5, 8.5, and 10. So those are the numbers. If you're just drawing your own number line, you need to have at least the numbers 3 through 10. So that's what we're going to do. We've got our number line 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and I didn't leave a lot of room up above it for the box and whisker plot, so I'm going to draw my box and whisker plot below the line, which is not standard. You usually want to draw it above the line, but I did not leave myself enough room. So these are the numbers that we're going to plot first. So here's 3, 4, 6.5, we'll just put it about halfway between 6 and 7. 8.5, we'll put it about halfway between 8 and 9. And then 10. Okay. Then you want to draw your box from the lower quartile to the upper quartile. So there's my box. The line in the middle of the box goes at the median. And then we extend the whiskers out to the maximum and to the minimum from the ends of the box. Okay. So those are the steps to draw a box and whisker plot. Are there any steps that we want to go back to? Any numbers we're not sure where they came from? Anything like that? Okay. So let's try something fun. We're going to collect some data real quick as a class. So in the chat, if you would like to participate, put your shoe size. We're going to collect some shoe size data and make a box and whisker plot for our class shoe size. And I will write down the numbers as we go. All right. Anyone else want to put their shoe size in? You got 30 seconds. Okay. So this is the data we are going to be working with. That's a good size set of numbers. Not too many, not too few. So here we go. We're going to make a box and whisker plot using the to represent the shoe sizes of people in our class. So here we go. First thing we need to do, put the numbers in order from least to greatest. So go ahead and do that real quick. Put the numbers in order, and I will do the same. Starting with 7. Okay. So we order the numbers from least to greatest. We should have 7, 7.5, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 8.5, 8.5, 9, 9, 9.5, 10.5. Okay, so next, we need to find the median. So we're crossing off the ends. And then we're crossing off the ends again. And then we're crossing off the ends again. And crossing off the ends again. Again. This time we end up with one number in the middle. That's kind of nice, because this number is our median. Then we're going to do the same thing with the top half of the numbers and with the bottom half of the numbers. So here's the top half, here's the bottom half. Now we cross off the ends, cross off the ends, and this number is our upper quartile. We're going to do the same thing with the lower half. Cross off the ends, cross off the ends, Number in the middle is our lower quartile. Then the minimum and the maximum. Those are the 5 numbers that we care about. So then when we go to make our number line, we need to have at least the numbers 7 through 11 on there. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And usually shoe size data and stuff like that is pretty close together because there's not a huge wide range of shoe sizes, especially when you get up to, or when you're in a class with people similar age to you. Like if you're in elementary school, all the kids in elementary school, like in your class, if you're like in a 3rd grade class or something, typically have similar shoe sizes. When you get to high school, the same thing applies because most people's feet stop growing at some point during high school. Sometimes for guys, they stop growing in college, but most of the time you end up with a bunch of people that have reached their adult shoe size. So they end up being fairly close together. Okay, anyway, the minimum. Then the lower quartile was 7.5, so we'll put that somewhere between 7 and 8. The median was 8.5, so between 8 and 9. The upper quartile was 9, and then the maximum was 10.5. Then we draw our box from the lower quartile to the upper quartile with the median line in the middle, or at the median, not in the middle of the box, but you know. And then the line from the box to the max and from the box to the min. Gotta put those whiskers on there. And then we're done. Okay. So those are the basics of box and whisker plots. And yeah, looks almost like a cat if you think of, you know, this is the cat's like cheek and this is the other cheek and this is like its nose and then the whiskers, but it only gets one whisker on each side. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the IXL section we're going to do with this. Most of the IXL section is just going to be answering questions like, what is the minimum? What is the maximum? What is the median? Stuff like that, given a box and whisker plot. But then towards the end, it will ask you which of these box and whisker plots represents the data. So that's where you would take your numbers and figure out what the median is, what the quartiles are, and stuff like that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and post the IXL, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Here we go. Box and whisker plots. This is an 8th grade IXL. CC14. So they'll show you a graph like this and say, okay, last year Winston tracked the amount of money he spent on groceries each week, and the box plot shows the results. What is the range of the amount of money he spent each week? So remember, the range is the maximum minus the minimum. So we go, okay, the maximum is 80, the minimum is 40, so 80 minus 40 gives you 40. Oops, not 49, 40. So these are the kind of questions that will be asked, especially at first. Okay. For a month, Mrs. McCoy's science class recorded the low temperature each day. What was the upper quartile of the temperatures? So the upper quartile, remember, is the top end of the box. So my upper quartile is right here, and it is 56. Okay. Obstacle course times. What is the fastest time of the obstacle course? So remember, on ones like this where you're dealing with times, like if you're dealing with swimming times or running times or obstacle course times, the smallest time is the fastest. So don't let that fool you. The fastest on the obstacle course is the minimum time, 260 seconds. Okay. So at this point, feel free to stick around if you have questions or you'd like to see more examples. Otherwise, you are free to go start working on the assignment. There is no exit ticket today. And it's been